Thank you very much, Carol. I like a nice segue. That does feed nicely into our discussion on how geoscience can support critical mineral discovery, and with what others around the world are doing in our region are doing in this space. Thank you also for my photograph on the in your presentation. It's always good to put a face to the names, and yeah, and it's great to see that we're getting so much interest in this particular forum. Well, the plan for the rest of the session is to answer your questions, and hopefully we've got some coming through. There's a few there already. I'll get to those in a minute. But what I thought I'd do first is just allow the panel to just say hello and to introduce themselves a little bit very quickly. We've seen their presentations, but I just wanted to go around the virtual room, so to speak, just so you know who is on the line, and before getting stuck into the questions. So perhaps Yongju, I could start with you just to say hello.
Hello, hi everybody. My name is Yongju Lee. I'm director of the CCOP. CCOP stands for Coordinating Committee for Geoscience Programs in East and South Asia, which comprised of 16 member countries and 14 cooperating countries. And then we do have 17 cooperating organizations work together. So it is quite unique and then very family-like international intergovernmental organization, which try to solve the issues of geoscience to help the economy and some development of the region. So I'm very happy to be invited to give a talk. So I'm expecting to have a very good panel discussion going on. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Songjun.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yeah. My name is Songjun Jo. I'm working for KIGAM. KIGAM is a government-funded Geoscience Institute in Korea, and also our institute cover almost a range of geoscience, including mineral discovery, mining, and metallurgy, and mineral economics, and policy, and geo-environment also. So nowadays, and also Korea government very interested in the critical minerals. So they ask us to find the critical mineral and also how to develop the minerals. So I'm very happy to attend this meeting, and also I'm looking forward to seeing the many things. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Rose, from the New Zealand contingent.
Yes, hello. My name is Rose Turnbull, and I'm here on behalf of Geoscience, Geological and Nuclear Sciences in New Zealand, the Geological Survey in New Zealand, here on behalf of my co-presenter, Regina Morgenstern. I've really enjoyed the talks so far. They've been really informative, and have got my mind thinking about other ways that we can understand critical mineral systems in New Zealand. And I'm very excited to be part of the panel. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Rose. Helen.
Hi everyone, thank you. My name is Helen Desling. I'm the Director for Minerals Geoscience at the Geological Survey of Queensland. So we are tasked with supporting mineral exploration throughout the state, and obviously we work very closely with our colleagues both in other states and at Geoscience Australia to support the industry more broadly.
Thanks, Helen. And then our Indian contingent, Dattatreya.
Hi everyone, myself Dattatreya Jire from Geological Survey of India. We three are in the panel, myself and Dr. Sandeep Roy, Muturu Dora. We guys are working on the critical mineral ranking system, and also to look for the key areas in the entire Indian subcontinent, so that we can coordinate with our geoscientists who have spread all across the subcontinent. And also the opportunity to be part of this meet, it's really very useful for us, how to look at the issues and then the geoscience challenges, coming out with the different models. And also it has given a new direction to work on. And really, we are privileged to be part of this entire global. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it's my intention now to go to the panel and discuss some topics and themes that have come up in today's presentations, and also answer the questions that you've been sending through, this audience have been sending through. And I'd really like it if the panel is a bit interactive. It'd be always good to get a discussion going. So panelists, feel free to ask questions of each other and to add to what other people might be saying if that topic pertains to you. But in terms of the audience, please send in your questions, and I'll make sure we get to them as soon as we can. But maybe I'll kick things off with a question to the panel myself, and this is really an open question to all of you. And I guess it's a bit of a philosophical question, and I think we sort of touched on it in many of your presentations, but maybe in just a few words, I wondered what you thought was the greatest single challenge for promoting and developing a critical minerals industry in your respective region or country would be. Maybe I'll start with you, Helen.
Thanks, Andrew. So, as I said in my talk, one of the biggest barriers that we see in Queensland is simply that the market or the supply chains are not developed out of Australia. We are a long way from the rest of the world, and so being able to put ourselves forward on an international scale, and that's something that we do as a team, Andrew, as you know, but also individually to be able to engage with market jurisdictions to create a space for what our excellent explorers and producers create a space for that to go. So, you know, a path to market essentially is one of the biggest hurdles that I see.
Great, thank you. What about Datreya from your Indian perspective?
From the Indian perspective, this is Sandeep speaking on the behalf. On Indians' perspective, like we have got two areas of challenges which we are trying to deal now. One is broadly the exploration challenges, how we are attempting the strategic and critical mineral exploration, the REs and all. And the second is the development of the value chain, the downstream value chain, the beneficiation and the industry, because that also needs to develop equally. Suppose we make the exploration, we narrow down the area, but then what to do with the ore? Like, so the downstream industry also needs to develop in India equally and working in tandem with each other, because then only we can grow up. So probably in philosophically, so these are the two challenges in broad spectrum. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a nice segue, I think, too, for perhaps hearing from Yongju from a Thailand or Southeast Asian perspective, because, you know, he's got a committee of part in the coordinating committee for many organisations. So the sort of the collaboration and the linkages is probably a really important component to what you're trying to achieve there. Do you have any perspectives on that?
Okay, thank you. So I think, as I already mentioned in my presentation, in the CCOP region, the greatest challenge for promoting the critical mineral discovery would be how to get all our member countries involved in some project. Actually, at the moment, actually, in the CCOP region, there are some countries which has a very definite definition and robust concept of critical minerals, but some countries are not. So I think that we have to have some capacity building program. So that could be very helpful for our member countries, system member countries go together for more understanding of the critical minerals, and then that would be the ideal situation that I'm sure that we can boost our discovery of critical minerals in our region. So capacity building and education is first needed in our CCOP region. Thank you. Back to Andrew.
Thank you very much. Yeah, certainly capacity building is a key theme, and I guess perhaps some of us or organisations or countries that have invested a lot into that, you know, seeing the benefits and obviously can share those benefits with others. Rose, what about from a New Zealand perspective? You know, you've mentioned that perhaps New Zealand is not or has some way to go in terms of developing its industry. So what do you think is the major challenge for New Zealand?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I think our major challenge is probably a lack of funding from both government and private sectors to support critical minerals research and exploration in New Zealand. And this, again, as I mentioned, probably relates to our historic lack of previous work in this space, in the space of critical minerals. But also, there's a quite strong anti-mining sentiment in New Zealand, despite the widespread use of critical minerals in a lot of our technologies. And so getting across that hurdle to then get both government and private funding to support exploration and critical mineral research is a challenge.
Yeah, I can understand. Yeah, thank you. Interesting challenges there, specific to your region. What about Sonjun from Korea? What do you think are the major challenges for you and your country?
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Korea is almost the same to New Zealand, I think. And also in Korea, the mining industry in Korea almost collapsed. So we don't have a player to develop the critical minerals and all the other minerals. So it's the most important problem. Even we developed some technology, but we don't have enough the company to develop our research result. And also, so we have also a lack of funding. It's one of the our challenge. Thank you. Back to Andrew.
Right. Thank you very much. So the questions are coming in thick and fast now. So I might jump to one or two of them. One other thing, I think, while I've got you on the line, Sonjun, you talked about drones, or had a picture of a drone in your presentation about how you collect data. So there's one question here about whether you could talk about how drones and other new technologies are being integrated into surveying and mapping of critical mineral deposits. And are there specific types of deposits that lend themselves to specific types of tools like drones? I wondered if I'd start with you, Sonjun, but maybe then perhaps if others wanted to chime in, they can.
Okay. Actually, we applied the drone for the exploration for more than 10 years ago. For more than 10 years. So nowadays, we have two types of drones. One is the multicopter, and the other is the airships. And also, we are now applied the drone magnetic survey system to our vanadium exploration, and also we applied some drone photogrammetric data and before the geological survey. So from the drone photogrammetric data, we can draw the geologic map on the screen. And also nowadays we are developing the aerospace-based electromagnetic systems. Then if we complete that development, I think it's really very I think it can be it can be work for the electromagnetic the exploration. Yeah. Thank you. Back to
Thank you.
Andrew. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wants to jump in there?
Yeah, sure, Andrew. So from the Australian perspective, yeah, drones are really exciting technologies, and I think the optical thing has just been covered in the previous comment. As I said, the challenge for a lot of us is to go undercover. So for greenfields exploration, I suppose we're looking at things that can kind of see through the cover, but drones are clearly stated in some of our national kind of research plans under a body called scope, and we also view exceedingly, I think, would be very useful for ground truthing and testing in real time and improving models that are derived from machine learning. So as you collect a few data points, you can infer what the distribution will be. You can work out where the greatest uncertainties are and where you need to sample next. So we think that for anything that's superficial in that sense, those are tremendous applications, and we're looking for opportunities to be able to deploy that type of, I suppose, thought process. Thanks.
Thanks,
I
Carol.
can add.
Yes, oh, go on. Sorry, go, Helen.
Sorry, Andrew. I can add to that as well. We, some of our collaborators at the University of Queensland are using drone technology combined with hyperspectral analysis and radiometrics to map out rare earth potential in tailings and waste dumps. So expanding on that, on the tailings story again, but using drone technology to get a quick snapshot of what's there, how far it might be spread, what the different concentrations and distributions might be.
Thanks, Helen. That's it. Yeah, I think it's an exciting development, and I agree. Rapidly surveying or ground truthing a small area in high spatial resolution, I think, is a really important part of the story. You know, so I think they definitely have their place, and perhaps increasingly so. I might move on, just in the interest of time. There's quite a few questions coming through now to another one, which is I think for you, Helen. So, but anyone else who wants to chip in can. The question is: the use of plants for phytoextraction is compelling. Are there specific types of plants better suited to biomining than others? I.e. succulents versus woody shrubs versus herbs. What happens to the biomass byproducts after the plants have been processed for the minerals? I think maybe Helen, start with you, Helen.
Sure. I'm going to just preface my answer with a note that I'm a geologist, not a metallurgist or biologist. I am presenting work that's being done that we're funding through the University of Queensland. So I'm not necessarily doing that work myself, just kind of overseeing it. But the approach that we're taking is that there are a range of different plant types, and because nobody has really looked at this before, except in a individual kind of cases or individual sites. So we certainly also don't want to be responsible for introducing foreign plant species into an area which causes a whole other set of environmental problems. So our approach with our rare earth extraction project is to look at only the plants that are on a particular site, so only the ones that are endemic to that area. And because we're looking at about 6 or 7 sites around Queensland, then all the plant species that we look at will be completely different, and that is covering a range of different environments from, arid, semi-desert through to coastal, more rainforesty, and that kind of thing. So the types of plants will cover a huge range. As to what happens once a hyperaccumulated plant has been identified, then there will be chemical processes to break down the plant matter and extract the rare earths. But our goal is to make sure that every step is as sustainable as possible. So I can't answer that end of the question because at this point we haven't got those particular answers for our sites yet, but we're working on it.
Great, thank you. Does anybody else want to jump in on that particular question? Nope, doesn't sound like it. Well, look, it certainly looks like it's an interesting area of research. So perhaps there's more we can do in that area. But it'd be interesting to see where it takes it. So it looks like you're paving the way a little bit there, Helen, in Queensland. So well done.
We'll give you an update in a couple of years' time, Andrew.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you. So I'll move to another question now, which is sort of related to what we talked about, what you've been talking about in terms of collaborations. The question is, what types of projects and programs are the geological surveys doing with universities? to help provide experience, skills development, and provide training for students pursuing geoscience degrees. So who would like to take that one on first? Perhaps maybe our Indian friends.
We in India have like the top premier institutes like the Indian Institute of Technologies, that is primarily a research and engineering institutes. So we are into collaborations with them, and we are also into collaborations with like Geoscience Australia. We have been we have been taking up a major project Uncover. With active collaboration with them, and they visit us in the field, and there is a lot of interaction. So those are two major projects which are going on for deep seated deposits. And similarly, we have other government organizations also, Atomic Mineral Division, and then the IRELs and the other organizations. So yeah, a lot of university students, a lot of professors, and it's a conglomerate of academic minds as well. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Others, I'm sure there's plenty of collaborations going on. Who would like to add to that?
Okay, Young Jury from CCOP. Can I speak?
Yes. Yes, go ahead.
Yes. We do have, as I already mentioned, we do have 16-member countries together. So we have the very variety of education program. Actually, some of them is focused on mining and mineral sectors. So we have a scholarship program for the member countries, which is provided by China, Geological Survey of China, and then KIGAM, Korean Institute of Geoscience and Mineral Resources, and then we also have a short-term training program from Japan and China and Korea. And then also quite recently we have a kind of internship program which can be upgraded to the master and PhD course in Korea, which is provided by the IERI, International Environmental Research Institution in Korea. So we have quite varieties of numbers of programs to have some PhD or master courses in our region. And then also I really hope that that kind of opportunity to be extended to with the collaboration of some cooperating countries like Australia and USA and then Canada. Thank you. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you very much. What about from a New Zealand perspective?
Yep. Hi, Andrew. Yeah, we haven't had too many student projects, again, based on the fact of lack of funding. But interestingly enough, the rare earth element project that we have been working on with the critical minerals work actually grew from a master's thesis that Regina Morgenstern, my co-presenter, undertook. I was her supervisor. So it does show that with some funding and student supervision, you can result in being able to hire and maintain skilled staff and expand the skills in geological surveys.
Great, thank you. And I think Carol, thank you. I think Carol said, but just before you jump in, Carol, I guess from my perspective, the nature of the collaboration would be about, like you said, Rose, whether it's about a springboarding some research into a sort of mainstream government research, perhaps. But I think also the other key thing about the collaboration with the university sector is augmenting or supplementing what you're doing with dedicated skill sets that may not be in-house. So I think there's a great opportunity to leverage those skills, particularly in the university sector, where perhaps the academic freedom allows a little bit more exploration in some of the things that might be researched. But I'll hand to Carol and see what his perspectives are on it.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I concur with everybody's comments so far. I just thought I'd bring to the attention I suppose a vehicle that has been very effective in Australia, which is the Cooperative Research Centre. So this is these are research institutions which are funded by industry and by government, and Geoscience Australia signs up to them. They have large amounts of PhD students. They have strong engagement with industry. They also have embedded researchers from the postdoc level. So it's kind of on the postgraduate to postdoc kind of level in terms of training. But I was involved in one of these early on in my time, as a geologist, and I learned so much about doing science which is relevant and provides direct outputs for that are relevant to industry, while also maintaining the academic rigor. The other thing that that GA does is that they also send off their own staff for additional training, and I was lucky enough to be a beneficiary of that. And as Andrew said, other things are on a case-by-case kind of basis to supplement what we're doing or to follow up various things. And we also support, I suppose, training programs for undergraduate scientists going off into the exploration industry, such as Nexus. But maybe Helen wants to talk more about those sorts of things.
Sure, absolutely. I was actually talking about Nexus this morning. So, so for those in the audience and on the panel who don't know, Nexus is an organisation run through the University of Adelaide for specifically to take early career geologists through various techniques to help them in their exploration skills. How to do soil sampling, how to pull together GIS data, how to do a whole range of things that are essential for their careers as exploration geologists. And we certainly support our junior staff within the GSQ to participate in Nexus, and I think that in the future we hope to be able to sponsor a position within Nexus as well as something that we've talked about. And as all of the others have said, we everything we do through the universities and those collaborations, and also other organisations like CSIRO and Geoscience Australia, allows for, whether it's an honours student or a PhD student, postdoctoral fellows to be involved in that research. So we do fund our critical minerals research funds, I don't know, quite a number of people and positions, and is able to, give them great projects to work on, experience in a really important area for our industry, as well as, secure their lifestyle and everything like that. So it's really good.
Great, thank you, Helen. Thanks, everyone. Another question that's come in probably goes to a little bit from what you were saying, Carole, in your presentation, but so I'll use that as a starting point. The question is, how can geological surveys predict and support development of the next hot critical mineral, like lithium? I'll start with you, Carole, and perhaps others will jump in after you.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So, so that is a tough one, right? To have the crystal ball and to be able to see through and work out which one to go after. This is actually a topic which the Australian government looks into. So the Critical Minerals Facilitation Office that they've developed has projects looking at what are the emerging technologies, so kind of scanning the horizon. And we're, I suppose, partnering with or providing advice to people like CSIRO and universities who are looking into these things and seeing whether whether the geology in Australia will be able to support that type of approach. All right, I might hand it over with that, but I'm probably not going to put my bets down at the moment on the next emerging critical mineral as graphite or something like that.
Yes, okay. All right, fair enough. Who else would like to, who else has got a comment around predicting the next hot critical mineral?
Yeah, I'd have a comment on that,
Rose.
Andrew.
Yeah,
in my talk I did mention about how it's almost impossible to predict what the next critical minerals might be, right? So right now we're all chasing tail for certain critical minerals that are important now and probably in the next decade or so, but without knowing what the next one is, I think what the geological surveys can provide is really sound geological knowledge and regional scale data sets of the things that Carole was talking about, dating of certain geological units or plutons, understanding crustal structure, having regional scale geophysical data sets, because then we can actually adapt our mineral prospectivity studies, particularly using things like the mineral systems way of doing things to be able to then focus in and understand where we might find the particular mineral commodities that we're interested in. Anyway, that's just my take on things.
Thanks, Rose. No, I totally agree with you. And I think one of the beauties of sort of the mineral systems approach is it allows that flexibility and that inclusiveness. So, it's a sort of a holistic way of looking at the mineralization process, and therefore allows you to use the data in its broadest sense, I suppose, with the information that's provided. And I think that's a key role that certainly the Australian government sees Geoscience Australia's role, and I'm sure it's similar for New Zealand and other countries too, that sort of national understanding is really important to provide the biggest potential bang for the industry's buck, so to speak, when they're looking at the different commodities that might be coming on in terms of the commercial sense. Does anybody else want to provide an answer? Perhaps something from South Korea. Songjun, have you put any thoughts to what might be the next big prospect for you?
Usually, lithium is, in case of lithium, is very important in Korea. As you know, we have very big battery companies in Korea. So, but still, they don't understand the supply risk of the lithium. And so in my case, we asked our government to secure the lithium because it have a very big supply risk. And also, we are also looking for the lithium deposit in Korea. So I think it's one of the very important role of the geoscientist. So we have to predict the supply risk, and also we already know that it's not easy to find a new deposit and new metal ore, so it needs time. So, but in case our government, they don't know that they think, if they want, they get all kind of the minerals very easily, but it's not correct. So I think so. Always we talked about the government. We have to prepare some the supply risk. Okay, thank you, Dr. Andrew.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And look, I know that India has always had a forward-looking approach to this, and I'm wondering whether there's anybody from the Indian contingent who would like to share what India's strategy is about the next, the priorities are for their critical minerals program into the future.
Andrew, from Indian side, yes, we have a huge challenge, especially the Prime Minister of India has a vision of going for the hybrid vehicles by 2030. So there is a huge demand for mostly HRE, and also Indian subcontinent has a huge potential for wind energy. There is a good amount of directional wind we have. So rare earth magnets are another important thrust area apart from lithium for the hybrid vehicles. So with these two, we have some national programs connecting with all the units in our country to look for the inland brines for lithium. And also, as we have excellent coverage of geochemical survey, 1 square kilometer, 1 sample. So we are trying to find out the ratios and again narrow down the areas for detailed search for the critical minerals. Now, government thrust, apart from looking for gold and base metals, we are slowly focusing from our geoscience geological survey perspective to do a research and look for the critical minerals in our country. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. Yeah, certainly a comprehensive approach. I know from your presentation there's a lot on the agenda there, so there's a lot of great work being done. Okay, I might move on to the next question though, and this is one I guess I have to ask given what we've experienced over the last sort of 12 to 18 months. The question is, during the pandemic, we all have been impacted. Did your research program on critical minerals get impacted during the pandemic? And what were your top lessons that you learned? Who would like to start?
Yeah, we can start from Indian side.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
This of many of the projects, actually what happened during the pandemic time when we were forced to be indoors. So we have a training institute wherein all the new entries in Geological Survey of India undergoes a compulsory orientation training for about a year, and they were stranded in stranded means they were not able to go to the other modules, so they were stationed at the training institute headquarters in one of our cities in Hyderabad, and and they had some plenty of opportunity and time to spare. So what we did is basically gave them a project and give them a trial, try scanning and try reading all the geological reports of Geological Survey of India and others, and try to map the potential areas where we can go for a strategic and critical mineral. And you'll be amazed to learn that they a group of new entrants of around say 150 geologists, young budding geologists with a lot of energy, bubbling energy. They consulted and read around 33,000 reports, and then they came out with the comprehensive, where we actually we can start with and map the whole country in terms of the possibilities and the base map from where we can go ahead. So this is one of the biggest takeaways from which the future projects of the country can be launched. So this is one of the examples which we can cite. There are a few more as well. So thank you.
No, thank you very much. I mean, I think that's been a real lesson learned for a lot of us, is that with the reduction in field work and reduction in travel, it's actually allowed us to take some time to turn our attention to what I would call a bit of housekeeping, to compile all the information, collate information that we've been collecting over many, many years, and having a look at it, and then using that as sort of a springboard to the next phase. But I wonder if any others have similar experiences, or maybe something completely random that came about that you didn't expect, but was an interesting lesson that you learned.
Yeah, maybe I can talk about that. So. So certainly on the point of delaying fieldwork and so on, our travel has been curtailed by this. But in some cases, we've been able to outsource it more to people who are local within that territory or state to even undertake things like drilling programs. So it's freed up our staff to spend more time thinking about the geology and doing a little bit less of the routine, I suppose, work. Another thing that's been a great, I suppose, benefit of this is just platforms like this in terms of the online nature. The Critical Minerals Mapping Initiative between the US and Canadian and Australian geological surveys. We've actually done a lot of work and collaboration I think as a result of it. We all had a great desire to be able to see one another and meet in person, but it has been very fruitful through these various tools, the online platforms. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Carol. Anybody else want to jump in?
One of the... Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. One of the things that we found in Queensland, kind of follows on from what Carol was saying just then, was that our guys ended up spending a lot of time collecting samples for other people's research programs. So they were, instead of doing the work that I wanted them to do, so they were stuck out at the core yard, cutting core for the University of Tasmania, Australian National University in Canberra, University of Adelaide, CSIRO, and all sorts of people, just to keep some of those other projects ticking along, and therefore the time was precious to be able to do the things that we needed to do, and being within the one state. I know that down at Geoscience Australia, you were not able to travel because any travel was going to be interstate, whereas for us, travelling out to Mount Isa or up to the Herberton region has been possible because it was all within our state. We didn't have to cross any borders. Obviously, the international engagement. So the work that I talked about that we're doing, generating markets overseas, you know, for Queensland products, and trying to do the work to develop the supply chains for critical minerals. That has on the one hand, I think, suffered a setback because we're not able to travel in person. But then, as Carol said as well, you know, we've still been able to do that via, you know, Zoom or Teams or whichever forum it is. However, I think that, you know, as great as this is, and I'm so excited to be able to be part of this global forum, but I'd love to meet you all in person. I'd love to stand around and have a glass of wine or a cup of tea or something and have those accidental conversations and that brainstorming that happens when it's not organised and prearranged. So that's one of the things that I think has been a big setback to maybe not specifically critical minerals, but all of our, you know, leaps and bounds forward in that regard.
Yes,
Indeed,
I agree with you. Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, I think there was someone else who wanted to make a comment too.
Hello, actually, I turned on my microphone, not because I wanted to answer the question, but I would like to ask some questions. Is that okay for me to ask some questions, Andrew?
Sure, go ahead.
Yes, as I already mentioned, this kind of critical mineral forum provide all the CCOP member countries to have some momentum to think about the kind of discovery of the critical mineral in our region. So I think it is a very good opportunity for us to think about the kind of specific area in terms of minerals and mining. So I have actually, and I'm very impressed by today's keynote keynote lecture done by Carol. And then I have one question to Geoscience Australia, to Carol, that is there any kind of a international program to help or maybe support all our member countries to having more understanding and more opportunities of the finding new critical minerals in our region, as you do in Australia, some program like EFTF, which is very impressive for me. Is there any opportunity or maybe collaborative opportunities, Carol? Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Thank you very much for your kind words about the talk and the program. So EFTF is an Australian government program at the moment. I'm not aware of a umbrella that reaches out for similar types of work across the whole world, but I think that this forum is an opportunity to maybe have a chat about that and to work out what could be those types of avenues. So perhaps we could maybe continue a discussion after this and work out what the options are. But at the moment, it's there is no kind of like global umbrella. But it'd be great to use this as a means to have a chat about that and see what's possible. Do you want to?
I will jump in as well. Sorry, from Queensland, we do develop project agreements and arrangements with other international jurisdictions. So we have one in train at the moment, and as it's not out yet, I won't speak about which country that is, but definitely our Premier will sign an MOU with another government or another organisation at a high level, and then we are able to work together underneath that for mutual benefit. So it's certainly a goal of our engagement with the European organisations that we're talking to as well.
Thanks, Helen. Yes, so actually I was going to come to that as a theme. It's a theme in some other questions too, a very similar question. Look, I think there's certainly a scope and opportunity. The whole premise, or one of the key tenets of the WCOGs is about information sharing and collaboration and supporting each other as a world community. So I think there's definitely opportunity and scope to have discussions. What the actual vehicle looks like, there's a variety of models, and Helen's pointed to one, which is a sort of a bilateral arrangement at a regional level, and I think there's also other opportunities at a national level too. So I think it's worth the conversation to continue. So thank you for the question. I think I might just quickly move on. We're getting close to time, and there's a couple of ones I wanted to get to very quickly. And one actually for you, Yongju, is, and it's specific to your situation, which is that your presentation was an excellent example of how the CCOP has achieved cooperation from 15 member countries, and I think you're sort of alluding to this a little bit in your question, and 14 other nations. So the question is, what are some of the key lessons that you can think of that are important for finding that common ground with all the different interests and perspectives from the 14 countries and 15 member nations?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Actually, one of the key features of the CCOP is that we have a long history, more than 55 years history, and then cross-border work is quite successful for a long time. So that's why we have been compiling many data through our projects such as GSI, which uploaded more than 800 important geological data from 16 member countries, which is in GIS format to our system. So I think we are very ready to collaborate with each other because we at least have some deep trust with each other. So within our member countries, and then we are very helpful. We are very happy and very supported by the old 14 cooperating countries, which is back to 1966. Some of the cooperating countries really give some technical advices and so on. So I think that the kind of critical mineral is also same situation. So as soon as I was invited to have a talk, I have some dialogue with 16 member countries, and they are very active, and then they have some kind of enthusiasm and then some intention to collaborate with each other. So that's why they send us some old maps, which is not published in public, something like that. So I think we could work together to have some new discovery of the critical minerals in our region with the help of the support of the member countries and then for cooperating countries. And then interesting enough, the Geoscience Australia is our biggest cooperating country. So, and then also the USGS Geological Survey and the Canada Geological Survey, and WCOG is also the CCOP is very actually joining the WCOG program. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that. Yeah, certainly some lessons we could probably learn from yourself in terms of bringing a whole bunch of disparate ideas together and making it work. So well done. There's a few more questions I'd just like to try and get through if I can in the time we have left, because I think they're very important to the general discussion. One of them is there's a theme emerging about the, it's a sort of question that I was going to ask too. There's a theme emerging about working on existing samples, existing information, and going out into new areas and doing more work. So I guess I'd be interested from the panel's perspective to the degree to which establishing the industry or making it better is focused on existing samples versus new exploration. Where do you think the balance lies? I'd be very keen to hear perspectives from all the panel on that. So maybe start with you from our Indian friends.
The existing baseline geoscience data, what we have, it could able to fetch very moderate deposits in the country. But the issues are with about nearly more than 6 lakh square kilometer, 0.6 million square kilometer is all with the cover sediments. Here we do not have any access to collect any geochemical information to support the industry for getting the mineralization or deposit discovery. Although the aeromagnetic data could be able to give certain amount of support for the industry to discover a deposit, but the unfortunate part is that how to get the geochemical dispersion of this cover sediment is one major challenge. Although groundwater can give certain amount of dispersions, but that is one major geoscience survey in our country need to work on to support these industries. And the second part is beneficiation. We do lack right kind of beneficiation. Although we detect, we sample, and then we publish about how much content of critical minerals are there in the host rocks, but how to get it rightly with economical or lab scale studies, that is also another part that we feel we need to support the industry in that regard.
Yes, thank you. Who would like to go next? Don't be shy.
Sure. Okay. Andrew, I think it's a great question. It kind of poses kind of like the geographic frontier versus the frontier in one's mind in terms of knowledge, I think. So the distinction between working on samples that you already have, I think, would be the one where if you can identify new opportunities that you didn't know about in the mind previously, I think that those would be low-hanging fruits. Whereas the other bits, the geographic frontiers, I imagine, require continued data collection because they were already on the forefront of one's thinking when one first went through it. But as technology changes and so on, which is another frontier, one can possibly get noise levels down in the data sets that one has or get more value out of it. So I'll be looking probably at trying to find the balance through the guise of those types of questions.
Thanks, Carol. Rose, what about from New Zealand's perspective?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I agree on the balance that Carol's talking about between existing and new exploration. In the work that we've done, we've been using and have found really useful existing data sets, including existing samples from historic drill core, particularly for our lithium study. These were really important because it meant we saved a lot of money not having to go and sample things ourselves. And we had the sample material there which we could just send away and get analysed and then input that geochemical data into our models. But on the other hand, having done our mineral potential mapping, we could see that from a geological survey perspective and from the mineral systems approach, having these regional scale data sets was really, really important, and we had a lot of gaps in our data sets. So from our perspective, any new spend on exploration from a geological survey side of things, the money would be best spent on these regional scale data acquisition projects, be that mapping of structure, of lithology, of soil geochemistry, of geophysics, and then that would help to support industry exploration at a more local scale. That would be my take on things.
Great, thank you. Sonjun.
Something correct. Okay. I think we are different from the other country because we have no existing mine, just only one mine for vanadium, and the other mine almost they're abandoned, so we don't have the operating mine. So nowadays we have to find new mines. So it's a different from the other country. Anyway, nowadays we are focused on the vanadium and lithium and graphite. In that case, we have the abandoned mine and also the other one operating mine. So first we got the data from the dead mines, and also we want to make some reference from the mines, and after that, as you know, we have to find new mines based on the all the data, and also we have to take the new data and also integrate it. So I think the operating mine also have some very important because we have to increase the resource amount of resource, and also we can get the data from the operating mine because it's the reference mine. So I think from the existing mine, we got the data, and also from that data, we will find new mines. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much. Maybe just finally from Helen.
Sure. As I showed in my presentation, we've really tried to strike that balance in the work that we're doing in terms of, you know, the hidden value. So what do we have where we maybe missed critical minerals and value in that drill core, in those old mine sites, in those existing mine sites, and then the new exploration has to play a part. And as Carol pointed out in his talk, as well as me, you know, Australia is 80% covered by dirt, and some of it is very, very thick dirt. So there's actually huge areas still to explore and a huge amount of ground that has had barely any attention. So there's a lot of greenfields and new exploration potential, but our philosophy has really been driven in terms of that low-hanging fruit that Carol mentioned. It's really been driven by the understanding that for a lot of the critical minerals, not all of them, it's not a uniform statement, but in a lot of cases they are co-located with other major commodities, other more traditional metals and resources. So, for example, cobalt in the Northwest Minerals Province of Queensland is often and mostly associated with copper. So we have some world-class copper mines that have been operating for 80 or 90 years in Queensland. That's fantastic. When we were talking a few years ago about, well, we know we've got a bit of copper here and cobalt, here and there in Queensland. Where are our resources? There was a question that came down from the minister's office or something like that, and somebody said, well, actually, the biggest cobalt resource in Queensland is probably lying in the Mount Isa tailings. So, all right, so let's start looking at that. There's a huge amount of value sitting around on the surface of the earth. It's already been dug up, but for various economic reasons over the last nearly a century, it wasn't economic to extract that cobalt. And that is the same for gallium and germanium with our big zinc deposits. It's the same with the rare earths or with the phosphorites, and Carol talked a little bit about that. There's a couple of phosphorite mines in Queensland, and for them to pivot and start extracting rare earths, it's a little bit of a, it's a shift for their shareholder base, for their boards, for their company operations, and yet I think it's an important one that we need to make, especially because extracting one doesn't take away from the other.
Yes, very good. Look, we're almost out of time, and this has been an amazing conversation and questions. And I'm very sorry I haven't been able to get to everyone's questions, and there's some real good ones in there. One that I wanted to ask was about looking 30 or 40 years ahead, and are people optimistic about the industry being able to satisfy the global demand for critical minerals? And I unfortunately we haven't got time for that, but perhaps we'll answer that one offline. But look, I wanted to thank everyone. I wanted to just thank the panel specifically for giving up their precious time this afternoon or today, depending on where you are, and really thank them for their contributions and their very, very constructive comments. And I'd also like to thank the audience for sitting in and watching the presentations and listening to the panel discussion. And thank you very much for your very insightful questions, which have been coming through and still continue to come through. But as I mentioned in the introduction, this is the final of the 3 sessions that has been worked between the Geoscience Australia, the Geological Survey of Canada, and the United States Geological Survey. The Americas session highlighted the role of the Geological Survey organisations to advance critical mineral research, and the second session, drawing on insights from Europe and Africa, explored the past, present, and future directions of critical mineral research. And of course, today we've heard from that fantastic panel on how geoscience can support critical mineral discovery. So as a reminder, you'll be able to view all the pre-recorded presentations along with today's plenary and discussion on the American Geoscience Institute's YouTube channel. And I'd like to thank, like I said, thank everyone involved in making the forum possible, the panelists, the live presenters, our collaborating partners from the Geological Survey of Canada, Geoscience Australia and the United States Geological Survey, and our sponsors, the World Community of Geological Surveys and the American Geoscience Institute. Thanks also to our dedicated organisers on the other side of the world who are still with us, particularly Leila Gonzalez and Chris Keane. And I look forward to working with you all in the future on critical minerals and in seeing the results of the critical minerals research in this forum has highlighted. So it's been a great pleasure to be with you all. And until next time, stay safe and bye for now.